Welcome, welcome. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube and you can hear me, leave me a comment in the live chat, please. Let's get started. Tesla stock is down 5% today. I see the thumbs up, thank you. We have Dallas in the crowd, Alexander in the crowd, Hustle Town. Come on up, join me on the speaker board. Tesla is down 5%. Overall markets, NASDAQ is down 2%, S&P 500 down 1%, Russell 2000 and Dow Jones are flat. Today is a major outperformance day for value-oriented stocks, it seems. Financial stocks like Visa, MasterCard, JP Morgan are up. Oil stocks like Exxon, Chevron are up. Healthcare stocks are mostly up, some mixed. And industrials, utilities are also in the green. But technology stocks, NVIDIA down 6.3%, Tesla down 5%. Omar, what is going on today?
Hey, yeah, bad day for tech stocks, I guess. I mean, I just think it's just the fluctuations of the market, but also you did kind of see a lot of overcrowding into Nvidia around the stock split. I think things are maybe just coming a little closer back down to earth. The valuation's still extremely rich.
Are you holding on to your NVIDIA shares?
Yeah, I'm holding on to my Nvidia shares. I'm adding to my Tesla position. And I'm happy for red days like this. To me, it's all kind of flat, but on green days, I don't ever buy, or especially on, the big surges when the stock just starts running up like crazy. It does tend to do that. It has those revaluation events, but it also has a lot of days like today where it goes down 5%. And those are the days I always buy a few shares.
Okay, that's wonderful. We have Larry in the audience. If he wants to come up and chat about Tesla Energy, we can do that. We have a lot to talk about today. So settle in, everybody. Welcome, Uzi. How are you?
I'm doing well in the same boat as Omar. My NVIDIA, my Tesla are crying right now, but long term.
Crying? Right.
No, yeah, a little bit, but it builds character, right?
Yeah, it builds character. These days like this builds character, especially after a 5% up day. I mean, come on. Showing your age. Okay, at the top of our screens is a link to become a member of the YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do from now on is one-on-one interviews with people, digging deeper into topics that we discuss here. So I'm going to focus on one person at a time in interviews published on YouTube. These are going to be exclusive to YouTube for now, while I build the channel up and add revenue from which supports Tesla Live. So I need to do all of the above kind of approach in these distribution channels. And members will get early access to these videos a few days, okay? And live chats will be focused only on members, okay? And so I'm going to try to build the YouTube channel that way. So X Spaces will continue to be hosted here, live streamed on YouTube during the day. And then at night, I'm going to try to do one-on-one interviews with folks. And I'm going to come up with a way to aggregate and track coffee bets in one spreadsheet. So this is all happening in the near future. I highly recommend becoming a member. And Uzi, I tweeted at you today to see if you were available for 1 hour today, because I want to maybe start with you. And you've been a very consistent contributor from the very beginning. When the space starts, you're always here, you're on the speaker board, and you have some interesting thoughts and expectations. So maybe we could do that one either today or, but then tomorrow I have somebody coming up that I need to prepare for. And so maybe we'll just do that. I'm not sure yet, some other time. But tomorrow there will be a video posted on YouTube or record. I'm going to record tomorrow, and members will get it a couple days early, and then probably published either Saturday or Sunday for the subscribers. Subscribing on YouTube is free. Okay. And then I'm hoping to have basically every regular speaker here. So these are group discussions on X Space, live stream simultaneously on YouTube. But I want to have one-on-one interviews with regular speakers. So they have to be people who've been coming here for months, good communicators, balanced thoughts, thoughtful predictions, and that's what I'm going to focus the YouTube channel on. All right. Omar, let's see what we want to discuss with. Do you have any thoughts around macro? You mentioned about NVIDIA. Do you think maybe we can talk a little bit about Fed meeting?
Yeah, the macro picture is looking more troubling around the world. You're definitely seeing signs of a slowdown, which I suppose is good. It's better than seeing overinflation. Tracking the situation in Chinese financial markets as well. There seems to be continued instability there. So generally not looking too great in terms of the global macroeconomy.
Do you think the Fed should cut tomorrow?
I think they should. I don't think they will, but going into September, I think there's a very strong chance they cut by the September meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think the markets are pricing 100% probability of a cut. And there's also a few people expecting more than a 25 base point cut by September, but we'll talk about that some other time. Tesla China seems to be doing well, though. Registrations in Tesla China is, I believe, highest this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
What do you think is driving that?
It's a great question, to be honest. I think obviously the financing deals they offer maybe played a part of that. Um, but I think people are just starting to recognize that the car is exceptional. It's one of the best EVs out there. Over time, people have seen these EVs and the different issues they've had as they've gotten more and more into production and more people have had experiences with them. The only company really selling more EVs in China than them is BYD. And BYD, of course, sells a lot of hybrids and they're really cheap, low-end cars. My parents were just in Turkmenistan and they said, "Oh, everyone's driving BYDs here, but they're these really crappy cars, right? They're not really Tesla competitors at all. They're really just, very low cost EVs." So I think maybe also some of the movement we've seen on FSD, the regulatory approval to test 10 cars in China, some of the sort of murmurs that they're working on bringing FSD to the Chinese market, that potentially could be raising more awareness of not only the FSD features that are coming, but also the autopilot features that already exist, which are actually quite good and really industry leading. And I think that the Chinese market is very different than the US and European markets. It's a very tech forward market, right? They care more about the software, the technology on the car than the US and the European markets do. And that's why you've seen, Volkswagen, for example, really struggle there. But for ADAS and technology like that, I think it's even greater. Many people in China, they don't have they're coming into cars for the first time, right? So a lot of people never had a car or didn't really know how to drive. So the value for them of an ADAS feature is actually much, much higher. And they're coming into this more from a tech angle without a lot of the sort of tradition. Oh, my grandfather drove a Buick or whatever, right? So it's a very different market from that perspective.
Thank you very much, Omar. And thank you, Sabrina Bach, for becoming a member to YouTube. This is at the top of our screens. Any other thoughts from the speaker board about Tesla China registrations? Okay. We don't really have a Q3 deliveries. So James Catt today tweeted that he believes Q3 deliveries or Q3 is shaping up better than he expected. He also revised his expectation that margins will, he used to think that they're going to go down still, but he changed that today. So, Uzi, what do you think about deliveries in Q3 and margins as well?
I mean, we looked at margins last quarter, and I think looking at the financial statement, it said the margins ex regulatory credits was like 14%. So I think that was concerning to people. In terms of forecasting the next quarter, that's not my specialty. I don't really have a data source that tells me like production or deliveries. So, I mean, that's Michael, the best with that.
Yeah, let me see if Michael is here. No, he's not here right now. Troy has been very quiet about Q3 production deliveries too, so it's a bit of a wild, wild west right now. Omar, did you hear about XPeng announcing plans to release a robotaxi by 2026, and it's going to be vision only? They're moving away from LiDAR.
Yeah, get in line. Everyone and their mom says they're doing a robo-taxi. There's a huge difference between saying you're going to do it and actually running millions of them safely every day.
And apparently they also said that they're not going to operate their own fleet, but they're going to partner with somebody.
I mean, the XPeng CEO, Mr. Xiaopeng, is clearly the biggest Tesla fanboy ever because he has just been ripping off Tesla since day one. He loves Tesla. Whatever Tesla does, he wants to do it. I mean, the original sort of XPeng design, many people said it was a Tesla knockoff in many ways. There was actually a issue where they attempted to steal the original autopilot source code and use that as the foundation for their X pilot. So, in Asian countries, they have a very different culture around copying. We had a guy at our software company who we acquired his company, and he was a architect. He went to Harvard, really smart guy. And he went and he worked in China for some time. And he said, when I was in the US, people would bring me plans and they would say, make me a building that looks like this. When he went to China, they said, they brought him a building and like a picture of a building in the US, and they said, make me this building. I want you to make this. No changes, nothing new. I want an exact copy of this building. Here we see, individualism and doing something different as an admirable quality. There they have a very different sort of take on it. When you respect somebody, then you do it just like them, you copy them. And, that's a sort of strategy that has worked very well for them in business. Take something that works and copy it and do it really cheap. And Chinese companies have found a lot of success with that. So it's really a cultural difference, and clearly they are very heavily inspired by Tesla, which Tesla may take offense to, but they say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
This is true. And another great form of flattery is Tesla Hype just sent $10 on YouTube and says, next coffee is on me. Thanks, Yaman. Thank you very much, Tesla Hype. And thank you very much for Sabrina for becoming a member. All right, I'm still waiting for Larry to work up the courage to come up and face some questions. But it appears that he's busy right now. And I see Robert Scoble is also welcome to come up as well. So Omar is not worried about expanding robotaxis by 2026. We talked a little about macro. Sticking with China, Omar, BYD. So I watched the video today, all the line video. They were talking about how PHEVs, plug-in hybrids, growth rate is 5 times faster than EV growth rate around the world and in China. And if that pace continues, then by the end of this year, hybrid sales will exceed EV sales in China. BYD, for example, they have 2 PHEVs, and one of them, $14,000 with a range of 1,300 miles. So kind of, as we've been discussing in recent months, solving that range anxiety issue, or at least addressing it. Do you think this trend will reverse at some point, or do you think we're going to have to wait until robotaxis for the advantages of pure EVs to be apparent to the masses?
So, a plug-in hybrid is just a gas car with a small battery. The reason that plug-in hybrid sales are growing so fast is it's a way to make a gas car that qualifies for the same subsidies that EVs receive. So in China, they have what's called NEVs, new energy vehicles. This includes battery electric vehicles, and it also includes plug-in hybrids. In the US, the EV tax credit applies to EVs, but it also applies to plug-in hybrids. So of course, this would grow fast, but it's ultimately not going to be a thing that continues, because giving government money to accelerate the purchase of new cars that pollute will actually increase pollution, right? Giving incentives to cars that don't pollute made sense because you're actually reducing pollution. But if you're accelerating the purchase of new cars through subsidies and those cars pollute, then the impact will be net increase in pollution, right? This is one of those great examples where the government says, hey, we're going to actually reduce emissions. And over time, it ends up doing exactly the opposite. It actually ends up accelerating air pollution. So pure EVs will win, and plug-in hybrids are the worst of both worlds. They're not as cheap as a gas car. They have the complexity. You don't have the maintenance schedule of an EV. You're still doing your oil changes. You're still having to fill your tank, just like a gas car. And you've got the complexity and the downside of both systems. You've got the weight and the cost of the battery, but it's not a balanced battery on the floor. It's kind of on one side, throwing off your driving dynamics. When you have your battery empty, let's say on a long highway drive, the fuel economy is actually worse than a gas car because now you're lugging around a heavy battery too. So these are like gas cars, like any other gas cars. They're not going to be something that survives ultimately, I believe. I think that especially autonomy will accelerate this. I mean, people have a lot of concerns about, for example, range and charging, but EV drivers don't really have the same concerns. As time goes on, more and more infrastructure is being built. The number of charging stations is actually going to exceed gas stations. So you're going to see the conversation actually reverse. People will say, "Oh, yeah, gas car sounds interesting, but where would I, get the fuel?" They don't have many stations around. Like, am I going to be able to make it to, the East Coast from here? Are there enough gas stations along the way? Meanwhile, there will be a charger pretty much anywhere you can park. So these things take time, but you're starting to see it happen. I think plug-in hybrids are emerging as sort of a transition technology, especially for the automakers that can't make a pure EV profitably and can't make a good pure EV. The plug-in hybrid allows them to sort of check off that box and claim the regulatory subsidies and say, look, we're doing something. But don't be fooled. These are gas cars with a small battery.
Okay, before we switch to FSD and also Robin Denholm's insider sales, let's go to Edward for a final comment on the topic. Edward?
Yeah, absolutely. I literally ran into this issue this weekend when we were taking the Cybertruck on the beach with the Jeep crew. They all had Jeeps. And the guy was trying to convince my wife, hey, you should get a, all, not, he didn't say all electric. He said, you should get the electric Jeep, the 4xe. And I'm like, I asked him, I said, I didn't realize Jeep actually made an electric vehicle. And he's like, oh, yeah, they've been making it for a while. I'm like, well, I didn't even know it was in production then, right? So when I got home and I looked at it, it's the PHEV. It gets 20 miles on the battery charge. And I'm like, this is not a freaking EV. Is this really what the masses think an EV is? I mean, it was just mind blowing to me. I'm like, these guys have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but the fact is that's how exactly the masses think. And from an investor perspective, one thing I learned over the last year or two, last couple of years, is that, you know, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the masses sometimes instead of trying to, you know, or hope that they're going to see it the way you do. Anyway. All right. Omar, Robin Denholm sold $15 million of shares. The filing just came out, and she's been selling more than $10 million of shares, almost. I think she did that 3 times for a total of, by my estimate, this may be wrong, but $67 million. So a very substantial amount. Tens of millions of dollars of shares she sold this year. Does this concern you as an investor?
No, I mean, I don't think Robin Denholm is necessarily doing this because she doesn't believe in the company. It just seems like prudent personal financial management when most of your net worth is concentrated in one company. Sometimes you have to sell a little bit over time. That's all the compensation she receives. It's in the form of stock. So nothing wrong with that. We give them their share so they can sell it. I mean, typically insider selling is a bad sign, right? Like if something really great's about to happen, maybe you don't see insider selling, maybe you see them holding a little bit, but it's really part of the normal course of business. As much as people might want to try and dramatize any stock sale, she probably wanted to buy a new house or something. I don't know. People sell for all kinds of reasons. That's why we gave her the shares so she could sell them.
Uzi, and then I have a follow-up question.
I've noticed that Fudsters like to harp on stock-based compensation, and they try to take it as a signal that those that run the company don't believe in it. And I've seen this outside of Tesla, companies like Palantir. I mean, NVIDIA might be a little different, but it's generally a talking point to create division. And I think in this case, Tesla boomer Mama said she always exercises her option upon maturity and sells her shares. And I think bulls will interpret it as her trying to maintain her independence. Fudsters will say, "Oh, she doesn't believe in the company."
Omar, would any amount of insider sales would concern you? Like, what if tomorrow she sells $100 million?
Well, if they weren't 10b5 sales and if she sold, all of her holdings, then maybe that would be something to take notice of, right? Like if someone's selling like a few percent of their holdings, it's like, that's just smart. It's just good financial management. of your personal finances, which I know might be upsetting to a lot of people in here who are 100% concentrated in Tesla, but any sort of financial advisor will tell you, okay, you're very concentrated in Tesla due to your work there. Maybe diversify into some other assets so that you're good no matter what happens to the company.
Does anyone on the speaker board know how much in Tesla shares does she still own? No. Uzi, would any amount of insider sales concern you?
Well, I wasn't a shareholder when Elon sold apparently like a couple billion. I don't know if that would have concerned me. I'm still buying the Nvidia dip because of Henry Jensen. So frankly, probably not. I sort of will look at that, but at the end of the day, if I believe in the long-term mission, then you can reason it for anything like, oh, Henry Jensen wants a new leather jacket, or people think the economy is going to crash, but it doesn't really necessarily mean that the company is going to fall apart. It just means this particular person needs some money.
Okay, so you think she's selling because she needs money. Gotcha.
Well, also, it's not just money. I think she, like, well, if I'm not mistaken, she, has like a time-based selling program, and she keeps it consistent when she's selling her shares or exercises her option and then sells the shares. So, if she goes out of that schedule, it might raise
I mean,
an
I can argue the other side of that on that because, she's been a chair for years now, and this is the first year she's selling so heavily. What do you say to that?
Well, it's a good financial decision if you're selling after like a 30% run up. So I understand that point of view, and she wants to maintain her her independence as part of the board. So it might seem like more is being sold, but at the same time, she's at least she doesn't seem like she's going out of the bounds of her role from what I've seen.
Yeah,
Do you
I mean,
disagree?
what would make her even more independent if she didn't get paid anything? That would be truly independent, right? I don't buy this whole independence argument. That's ridiculous. Anyway, let's switch to FSD. William Stein, an analyst, posted a analyst note and said when he was testing, I believe 12.5 on his Model Y, he nearly crashed. He believes that Tesla is nowhere near solving robotaxi level autonomy, but he was impressed that the latest version is a lot smoother, does better decisions, makes better decisions, and that you don't have to touch the steering wheel. So all of those were impressive to him that he noted in his analyst note. But he says Tesla's nowhere near solving robotaxi level autonomy. Robert, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. When I first bought FSD, it could barely stay in a lane, and I couldn't do anything. He doesn't understand. AI always starts worse than a child and gets better and better and better over time. And yes, it is still making mistakes. Even the latest version made a mistake in my car, but it's fixing mistakes at a very fast rate compared to what we used to have. And so it's like, how do you say it's not close? I'd say it's a year to 2 years away. What's not close? Is that not close? But people make up their mind based on one thing. That's not the way to look at this. It's how fast is it improving?
Okay, so Robert, do you believe it's a year to 2 years away, robotaxis?
Humanless driving, yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think Omar is in the same camp as you,
Yeah.
Uzi.
The new version is freaking amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
Omar is absolutely right.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. I mean, most people believe humanless, driverless robotaxis by Tesla are only a year to 2 years away now. Robert
And if they're
Scoble,
longer, two
and
to 4 years,
also,
it's still right around the corner. Yeah.
wait, so are you switching from 1 to 2 years to 2 to 4 years?
No, I'm just saying if I'm wrong, because software can slip and things can go, can get held up by regulators or whatever. But it's not 15 years away.
Okay. Larry, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me this time?
Yep. Perfect.
Well, I was talking away earlier. I couldn't get heard. I just want to hark back for a moment to the Robin Denholm story. I think you're missing what's happening here. I'm just glancing up at the Form 4. She started selling the stock this year, you're correct, but she's actually ended up with more stock at the end of the process of selling than she started with. So what she was doing was selling stock in order to acquire stock and pay her taxes. So when she started selling, she had 59,000 shares, and when she ended, she had 85,000 shares. So I think what she did is she sold enough to realize to purchase. She sold enough options to purchase stock and to pay the taxes. That's what I'm reading from I could be wrong, but that's what I'm reading from the Form 4.
Yeah, because I can see that there's some securities with a price of 23.17.
Correct.
So that would probably match with an options exercise because
Right.
I think they probably pay her in incentive stock options rather than in terms of equity.
Correct.
So with the incentive stock options, she has to put up the exercise price of the stock, and then she also has to pay taxes on the exercise. So
No,
she
on the
would
difference
acquire.
between, she has to pay tax on the difference between the exercise price and the current
Right.
price, which is
So
quite a lot of money.
typically what people do is they'll go to the bank and say, "Hey, could you loan me the money to exercise these shares? Once we exercise the options contract, we'll then sell the shares, pay you back for the exercise price, pay Uncle Sam back for the taxes, and then I'll keep whatever's left over."
Yeah, and that's correct, except most brokers, you don't have to go to the bank. They do it all internally for you. I mean, I've exercised prices in my company for stock in my company for 10 years, and that was the process. So, but if all you have to do is look at the amount of securities she beneficially owns at the outset of the process and how much she has left at the end of the process. And I haven't looked at previous years, but that's what's happening this year. Does that help you at all, Yaman?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Larry, do we know how much she holds now?
Yeah, 85,000 shares.
Okay. And
I don't know how many
people,
options. I don't know how many options. Wait a minute, I do. She has left 10,612 options, I think.
Okay.
And they expire on they. Oh no, these are all expired on 8/18. That's why she exercised them. Sorry, I misread that. She had 4 sets of options that expired on 8/18, amounting to about 130,000 shares. She went ahead and sold all of those, and as Omar pointed out, that's actually the shares that she sold at the 23. Well, she bought those shares at the $23.17 strike price. She then went ahead and sold those shares, or at least a part of those shares, at the $216 to $222 price, and then she acquired enough shares that she bought. Functionally, she bought 26,000 shares. She started with 59,000 shares. She ended with 85,000 shares. So what she's doing is accumulating shares from her stock options.
Machine, what do you think?
I think I don't care about how many shares Robin Denholm owns.
Okay, Machine, is there an insider sale, a cumulative total insider sale amount that would raise a red flag for you?
Yeah, I believe if I start seeing the CEO selling a large percentage of his shares, I might think things aren't going well. The CEO. Oh wait, that happened in December 2022.
You're talking about
Yeah.
Jensen?
Yeah, no, so Uzi said a couple $1 billion, but the fact is Elon sold tens of billions of dollars of stock. And at the time, people said he's selling to, he's selling to pay taxes. His options were going to expire, and that he had to sell for a Twitter purchase. But it did mark the top on the stock. So hindsight 2020.
But it sounds like this isn't an insider sale at all. This is actually an options exercise. The bearish signal might be if she let the options expire. If she's actually exercising them, that means she feels bullish about the future.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
serious conversation. She
tomorrow.
bought 26,000 shares is what she did.
Okay. Machine.
Yeah, I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually these insider trading information usually doesn't pan out unless it's like really significant. And I think, maybe significant buying. Like people are going to sell all the time when they own a lot of a company. I mean, Robin Denholm has made a lot of money, and she's not doing anything at Tesla. So like, why would she keep all her money in
When
this
is
stock?
when does Elon's settlement with SEC expire that he can become a board chair again?
It already did, I believe. It was 5 years from 2018, so 2023 should have expired.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a prediction. This is a wag. It's just a pure guess. I wouldn't be surprised if Robin Denholm's out by the end of the year and Elon's chair again. Larry, what do you think?
I will take more than a coffee bet on that. I'll take real money on that.
No, we do coffee bets only. You
Well,
want
how many coffees? How many coffees can we bet?
I don't know, but we have a bunch of outstanding, and I hope that Larry, you come to my YouTube channel and we can do a one-on-one interview. Part of these one-on-one interviews that I start doing with people is going to be a review of coffee bets, past coffee bets, and any sort of coffee bets that they would like to make going forward. And Larry, I will pin that here right now. We'll do a coffee bet on this. How about that?
Sure. And can we add to that review of coffee bets a lunch bet? Yeah.
Yeah, we can exactly. We can do the lunch bet as well. All right. Larry, while I type this up, any final comments on Robin Denholm's sales? If not, we're gonna switch to actually, you know what? Let's stick with FSD while we have Machine on here, and then Larry, how much time do you have?
I as long as you wish me. I mean, I'm free for the day.
Okay, and then let's talk energy. So Larry did a video with Bradford and Matt Smith, and which included the forecasts, margin forecasts, gigawatt hour forecasts, revenue forecasts for the energy segment, and then a couple of tweets were shared after that. That says something like, "These can be optimistic." Larry, is there an update to that video coming?
There isn't yet. We're trying to consult with a whole bunch of CPAs. We're getting conflicting answers from them, but I'm quite happy not quite happy. I'm quite unhappy, but quite prepared to say that my reading of the note may be wrong, And we may be limited to this 25% margin because that may be just orders on hand for contracts that run longer than a year that they're making, that they're having to report under the 606, under this particular audit requirement. So I want to wait until I've actually sent an email to Tesla IR to try and get clarification, because there is absolute confusion amongst the audit, and I'm talking about some pretty senior auditors, accountants, who are actually capital goods accountants, and there's a general feeling that the disclosure isn't sufficient.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we said in here too a couple of months ago about the Tesla Energy disclosures. Just doesn't seem to make 100% sense to anybody, which is amazing after years.
Right. I tried to get a question in Say to get clarity on that, but it wasn't upvoted, and I got into deep hot water because I tweeted about it. But anyway, I mean, hopefully the company will respond to me, and we get some clarity.
Okay, Machine, is there any, have you made any adjustments to your understanding of Tesla Energy's future?
No, I think it's going to have solid margins. And if you want to look at it optimistically, you could say next quarter it might have double automotive margins, which are going down.
So you think automotive margins will continue to go down in the coming quarter, in Q3?
It seems like these interest rate offers, reduced offers, are staying or starting earlier in the quarter. I don't know. I haven't paid full attention, but that's what I've read.
Okay. And have you been, did you see I know you track resale values of Teslas, and there's one particular Model Y with FSD that I've been tracking. This is at the top of your screens. This is a Model Y 2020 with FSD, now selling for $27,600. Just last week, it was selling for $29,200. So it's I think a 5-6% drop in 1 week. Machine, are you noticing a acceleration downward in these resale values? Does that concern you as an investor?
Well, first of all, I don't pay attention to single auctions like you do. Who has the time to pay attention to single cars and watch their price change over time? Get a life. I look in aggregate, and in aggregate, I don't think there's an acceleration downwards. I just think it's pretty flat slope, which is by itself kind of disturbing, because I was looking at some of the other cars. Other models, other brands. I don't know why in the last month we've had this drop again. I'm not concerned. It's just, for me as an investor to feel safe buying more shares, I would like to see automotive margins bottom. That's what I'm waiting for, which of course is silly, because you could say, of course, the stock price will rise before that happens. But I don't know. We thought it was flatlined in June, and now it started again. So when will it end?
Yeah, when you say we thought it stopped, I think you just mean you. I understand you want to bring other people into your false predictions, but I'm here to stop that from happening. I told you that they were not going to stop, and you said no, you cursed me out. You said all sorts of negative stuff, and I was proven right and you were proven wrong. And when you're ready to apologize, I will accept your apology.
Well, I will admit that I did think it would flatline at that point. However, there was no name calling. I've called you many names for other reasons, not for that, but many other reasons.
Okay.
One, you're total bootlicker charlatan, but other than that, you're.
All right, Larry, I saw your reply to the coffee bet. So I would like to do end of 2025 because obviously these board changes take a lot of time, and I don't know when she's coming up for election or whatever. So
I'm happy to accept that because, I don't think we're going to lose her in a hurry. But I do want to comment on what Machine said about other used car prices. I'm just gazing at Car Guru's web page now, which I do from time to time, and of course he's wrong. Average selling price across the board declined from 28.6 to 27.3 from January through July. So he's absolutely wrong. The whole market is really struggling right now. Dealers have got huge inventories. The major OEMs have got huge inventories, and there's a huge amount of discounting going on in order to move cars. So he's wrong.
thank you for confirming that Machine is wrong. I would like to repeat again. Everybody take note, Machine was wrong. Machine?
I'm driving right now, so I can't go look. But this isn't a classification problem to say yes or no. Did other car makers' prices go down? The question is of magnitude, and very clearly, in the last month, in the last 6 months, in the last 2 years, the percent declines for EVs, not just Tesla, but for EVs in general, has been much higher than for ICE cars. That is the truth.
Well, that is correct. There's no doubt about that. But on the other hand, what you did say is that, well, you just said they continue to go down, and so since July of 23, all used cars have gone down 10% across the board, and they're continuing to go down. So just a word to the wise. What's happened is that the new car price of EVs have come down very dramatically, and with that reduction, used car prices are reflecting that. We're going to continue seeing that until EVs are going to be consistently lower in cost than internal combustion engine cars because of, they're simply simpler to build and they're cheaper to build with the reduction in battery costs. And that's just the reality. And what we've seen is this sudden break between the tradition of EVs being dramatically more expensive than internal combustion to a point where it's much cheaper, and that break came very dramatically, and it's shifted the conversation quite significantly. But it's not going to stop. It's going to go on, and as it goes on, it's going to have a huge impact on the market.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. I just want to say a few words for our sponsor. This episode is proudly sponsored by Joa Life. To get a 5% off your purchases, use code TSLA Live. There's also a link at the top of your screens that incorporates the code automatically, so it's convenient to do so. And just want to say a word of appreciation for Joa. We've spoken in the previous episodes that they have great products, and they're also very good supporters of Tesla creators like Omar, Sawyer as well. So you get 5% off if you use the code, and I get 5%, which goes toward improving this space. Machine.
I was just going to ask Larry or whoever's looking at the used car gurus, in the last month, what percent is the average car index gone down versus the Model 3?
Right, I don't have the Model 3 accessible to me directly. Hold on, I may do. Set date. In the last month, the used car across the board index has gone down from 30,129 down to 27,333, 10%, 9.28%. Now let me see if I can find.
Fake news. There's no way. No. In the last month.
I'm looking at Car Gurus. I'm on their site.
Wait.
You know,
Wait,
fake
Oh my
news.
God.
Okay,
Dude,
fine.
I
You know
love
better than Car Gurus. That's fine. End of conversation for me.
Okay, Machine, what was your question? Just asking.
Wait, listen.
Just
Use
ask me, what was your question? Okay, just everybody take a
In the last 30
breathe, take a
days.
breath.
In the
Just
last
take a
30
breath.
days, 30 days. Last 30 days. What is the percent change?
10%.
No,
9.28%.
No way.
No. Hold on. Everybody quiet down. All right, I'm entering as a mediator here because you guys couldn't handle this among yourselves. And here is the adult in the room. So Car Guru's prices for the overall index in the last 30 days is down 0.36%. In the last 90 days, down 1.15%. This is the overall. This includes SUVs, pickup trucks, and everything. If you look at Tesla, okay, Tesla overall down 0.4%. So it's slightly higher rate than Car Guru's overall 0.3%. However, the Model 3 recent average listing prices for the Model 3 down 1.8%, Model Y down 2.3%. So substantially more than the overall Tesla and the overall industry in the last 30 days. Okay, Machine.
Thank you. And I apologize to Larry. I just think, I think maybe you guys are mad that I don't have Hardware 3 and I'm driving on the highway, and I think you're trying to get me in an accident. And I just...
No, we're not trying to get in accidents. But, don't cut off your elders. Machine. Go ahead.
Sorry, I keep tapping the wrong icon. I just meant to do a thumbs up. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, like from South Africa.
Yeah, this is exactly. All right, Edward.
Yeah, as far as the insurance thing, I think big picture, as far as warranty laws, Teslas are relatively young. You got to remember that I think 80% of all the Teslas on the road are still under factory warranty. Well, now they're starting to come out of that factory warranty. Like, for example, the tweet that you made, Yaman, about the vehicle. I checked that vehicle out on the tweet, and it had 86,000 miles on it. Well, that's 16,000 away from, being out of that battery warranty. And I will speak for the populace and say that the main concern that they have is how much does the battery cost when we have to replace it. That big battery, how much is it going to cost? 10,000, 20,000. They ask me that every single time I talk to people. So that is their big concern. You're going to see all these Teslas that are like kind of graveyard Teslas that the batteries have to be pulled out and recycled. Nobody's going to want a Tesla that's 100,000 miles on it. In my opinion,
Well, not in this extra statement. I don't think nobody's going to want it. Tesla batteries are designed to last hundreds of thousands of miles. The warranties are industry leading. I need to fix something in the machine.
say, like, I partially agree, partially don't. I initially wanted to disagree just because I think if you
at even the newer years, the last few years, the used car prices of those are going down, like in the same trend. So then I was going to say, well, I don't know if that's true, but at the same time, I do believe in the older models that could be the case. And then if those get drawn down first, then the other models kind of have to follow, right? Just in terms of competition. So maybe it might be a good point.
Bradford.
Yeah, I have a question along these lines because I posted last night that, and this question's for Larry and maybe some others,
that I'm very tempted to buy some hardware-free used cars. It's like people are panicking about hardware 3. There's Model 3s, maybe they're 25,000 with 40,000 miles on them. You can add FSD for $8,000. You could probably even finance the whole thing. So 33,000, and then if it's a robotaxi, you could probably collect 70 cents a mile in profit. Like I'm guessing worst case, Tesla's going to do this at $1.50 a mile and give us $1 a mile as Tesla owners. That seems like very tempting. Curious what you all think.
Huge mistake. Absolutely catastrophic mistake, Bradford. And I don't have time. I have only a few minutes left. If someone wants to hear my hardware 3 rant and go into detail, but I would just say the cognitive dissonance going on in investors is amazing. You have people like Alex Tourville and Meta literally can't believe Elon's tweet when he says hardware 4 has about 8x more space to go. They're literally like, no, he must have had a typo. He didn't say that. No, that can't be true. And I'm just understanding these extreme rationalizations of, well, go look at James Dalma's tweet back in March about what he said. It's just a whole rant about optimization. Like, yeah, we get it. You can trade more and optimize more and try to eke out better performance. No one's saying you can't get better performance out of hardware 3 than today. The question is, will it make it literally, I'm not exaggerating, 100x in reliability improvement it needs to get to a robotaxi level without increasing the model size? That is an extreme level of increase without increasing the complexity of the model, which is admittedly now by Elon basically at its limit. So it's going to get better than it is today, but is it going to get 100x better without increasing the model size? I wouldn't bet on it. So I would not buy hardware 3 cars yet until you see a better sign that would be the case. Hardware 4 for sure has a better chance. Unfortunately, I have to go so everyone can, build up their anger at me.
Before you go, I pinned at the top a hotly debated question. This question already got 200 replies, and people are divided. And I'm going to let you drop a bomb and then leave. Do you believe that Tesla is obligated to make hardware 3 cars robotaxi capable or somehow make their owners whole? Machine?
For the most part, absolutely not. Only if people purchased in March 2019 or before the license did they have language that more stated or implied that they would deliver an L4 above system to them. Everyone else after, they basically already received what they intended to purchase. So no one, and that's the bulk of people, right? So basically the majority of people are not getting any upgrades or anything. They're getting what they have, which is a really nice L2.
Okay, enjoy your chicken. I saw one of those Popeyes near me the other day. I'm going to go soon. Bradford.
Yeah, I think the clear part is the language on the website and what people are expecting from that. I know Elon said different stuff at Autonomy Day, and people say that everything Elon says is a promise, but it's really not. It's the language on the website that really matters. So I'm curious what others think, because I think it's Tesla's going to be able to deliver on getting 12.5 on hardware 3. Elon's very confident about it. Said 10 days. He didn't say 2 weeks. He said 10 days is going to happen. 12.5 is great. And I don't think it'll be the end of what can be put on hardware 3. Hardware 3 is getting rid of multiple stacks. It's going to be combining stacks. Admittedly, they'll have to increase some needs here and there in the software to make that happen. But or some size of the model or whatever, but you're getting rid of a whole stack. So I'm optimistic that an extremely good solution is going to fit on hardware 3. And I'm kind of debating in my head, and I'm wondering what others think. Like, what's
Let me
a
ask
better?
Omar, some of the replies in the question above say, it may be true that the language wasn't, the language on the website or the agreements, didn't promise robotaxi capability. But the Elon comments that Elon made in shareholder meetings or other events implied that they should expect to be able to add their hardware 3 cars to robotaxi network. And if you care about customer loyalty, then they should do something about it. What do you think?
I mean, that was an investor presentation about the company's plans. It wasn't really a customer event. But, people have always said, oh, they're not going to deliver. They're not going to deliver. It's not going to be robotaxi. They have not backed off one bit on their commitment to give those cars every feature they described. They are launching every single one of those features. And as every single one of the features have launched, people still said, oh, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Even though literally every single thing they described has launched. The last piece that they described in 2016, which is the car will go park itself and, smart summon. The smart summon is shipping for those older cars. The go and park itself hasn't shipped yet. Once that ships, they've literally delivered everything they described. And they said, look, this is dependent on achieving safety far in excess of a human and regulatory approval. AKA, look, this may never happen, right? You should never buy something based on a future software update. It's kind of okay, this could happen in the future, but you're really buying it based off of what's there today. And they've delivered every single feature, and they're going to continue to. They're going to ship 12.5, and they're going to ship 12.6, and they're going to bring actually Smart Summon to the cars, and they're going to bring Banish to the cars. Even MCU1 cars from 2016, from October 2016, we're talking 8 years ago at this point almost, are running FSD 12.3.6 right now. I mean, that is crazy. Their commitment to supporting these cars for 8-10 years, they've demonstrated it. And they're going to continue to do that. So they're going to continue to push software updates to the hardware 3 cars to make them drive better and better. If there's a benefit, they will make an upgrade available. But when you have a fleet of millions of cars, it's not going to be a homogeneous fleet. You're not going to have millions of cars that are all on the same hardware. You're going to have some that are on older hardware, some that are on newer hardware, and you need to operationalize a system that can deploy model updates to all the different cars. You're not always going to be able to upgrade every computer. So this is just an important part of operating in the real world. And there is really very little data to actually point to that shows they're not taking backwards compatibility seriously. They have, in my opinion, done an excellent job with backwards compatibility, supporting cars that are 8 years old when the competition won't even support a car that's 1 year old and give software updates to that car. When the new Super Cruise launched, for example, you didn't just get an update on your old Super Cruise 1 car, you had to buy a whole new car, right? So what Tesla is doing here, supporting 8-year-old cars, is pretty exceptional, and I expect that to continue for the millions of hardware 3 cars out there. I mean, people forget there's more hardware 3 cars out there than hardware 4 cars to this day. So they're not just going to be forgotten. They're going to be running FSD as well.
Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah, Omar, you said we shouldn't buy a car on a promise of a future update. Don't we buy Tesla stock on a promise of a future update?
Well, a Tesla stock or any stock is based on your expectations for the future earnings of the company. It's generally not a good idea to buy a product because you're hoping it's going to do something that it can't do today. I recommend people buy a product if they like what it is today. Any future software updates is just a bonus, right? So, I may buy an iPhone and Apple may say, well, we've got a great iOS coming next year. But you never know. It may or may not actually ship. It may change. It may not be as good as they said or live up to the hype. But as long as I like what the product is, then I'm happy.
John Lee. Just for fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great policy to say don't buy a product based on what the CEO says. That seems kind of unfortunate that went in that place. But I'm an Elon fan, and I'm not an FSD owner. But Elon must have said many times, if not dozens of times, on different calls and speeches and so on, that the fleet would be robotaxi capable. And even on the most recent earnings call, I think he said this, that the entire fleet would be robotaxi capable. And so for someone, if someone bought the car several years ago when the company was in very bad condition and bought the cars at a high price, and Elon said there'd be appreciating assets, that the FSD price would keep going up, and then all sorts of things about, smart summon and all these things. I just feel like it's worth the cost, even if they can't make people completely whole. If Tesla is able to do something to offset sort of the expectations that may not be met if hardware 3 isn't capable in the end.
Larry, you've run businesses before. What do you think about this topic?
I think there's no doubt that hardware 3 will run FSD fine. I heard Elon say it literally during the 15 minutes he was on the call on a call with the event in California this weekend. Look, in 2020, Tay wrote a survey paper. Tay et al. Wrote a survey paper, which I have, actually framed over my desk, about all the opportunities to reduce memory in transformers, and that's before actually GPT-4 was introduced, which took memory to a whole new level. We haven't even begun to explore how to what degree we can reduce the memory size of these transformers, and I go back to the original product in my last company that we built in 2011 to 2014. It was introduced in 2014. Here we are in 2024. That product is now probably 20 times more functional. It uses less memory today. And the reason is, when you build this thing, you don't even begin to understand it. And so you use, you not only use, you sort of abuse the capabilities of the hardware, because you're far from getting down to optimization. You're really interested in functionality. And then over time you learn, all of the waste that you've introduced, and you optimize and optimize and optimize. So I'm not surprised that it's going to take them a week or 2 or 3 or 4 to to build the hardware 3 version now that they've ported to hardware 4.
Okay, but if
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but if Tesla can't deliver FSD unsupervised on hardware 3, what do you think Tesla should do?
I haven't begun to consider that. I mean, if it's a memory issue, then they'll have to have some sort of a way to add additional memory to the old box. That doesn't seem to be out of all possibilities. it has to be pretty high-speed memory, given what that memory is responsible for doing. So whether they'd be able to do that or not with ease, I don't know.
Omar,
yeah.
maybe Omar might know if Tesla can add extra memory, for example, to hardware 3. Omar, what do you think?
I mean, every piece of the car is designed to be upgradable. The whole discussion is so silly to me. I mean,
Yeah.
the only reason there's no hardware 3 upgrade is because even the hardware 4 cars are still running the hardware 3 model in emulation mode. So this hasn't even happened yet. This idea that hardware 3 doesn't work anymore,
Right.
it's completely untrue. And look at models like, for example, GPT-4o Mini, or the smaller models like Thief, for example, that are continuing to show better and better performance, learning from the larger models. I think that we're nowhere close to the capabilities of hardware 3. It's going to continue to get better. And let's say in a worst case scenario, the performance is not enough to achieve superhuman performance, which I don't even believe we have any evidence that's true. It's mostly just fear mongering and FUD rather than software actually not running on it, right? We haven't even started to touch the performance of hardware 4 yet. This is all a hardware 3 model. But let's say that did happen. They would just replace it with a new computer. They could add more memory, they could add more processor, they can put anything they want in there as long as it's the same size and fits in the same power envelope. It's designed to be replaceable. As a matter of fact, a lot of people did have their hardware 2.5 computers replaced with a hardware 3 computer. The cameras are designed to pop right off. If there's an issue with the camera, boom, pop it off, put a new one on. It's like a Lego, it's so simple. Issue with the computer, take the old computer, put the new computer in. When you have something that's as high value as autonomy, a $1,000 upgrade is like a drop in the bucket. The company could even cover it themselves if they need to. The only reason they haven't made an upgrade path from hardware 3 to hardware 4 is that it would be pointless to do so, as the hardware 4 cars are pretending to be hardware 3 cars right now.
Okay. We have a couple other hands, so let's get their comments. Luce and then Bradford.
So one thing I'm sure about that hardware 3 isn't good enough are the cameras. In my opinion, the cameras on hardware 3 are not high resolution enough to read the street signs. But beside that, I could be positive that hardware 3 could be capable of running FSD and being updated if needed. But for sure, the cameras needs to be replaced.
Bradford.
Yeah, I want to evolve the question a little bit. So, what I'm wondering about is what's a better investment at this point? I think given so let's pretend that hardware 3 can run it and do a great job and be almost as good as hardware 4, like in the limit, like 2 years from now. Let's assume that for now. What's a better investment? Buying hardware 3 cars for like 25 grand, adding FSD for 8 grand, owning the stock, or something else? Like, what's the better way to play the autonomy with Tesla? Larry?
Own the stock.
And why?
Because if you own the device, it's operational. You got operational issues. You've got control issues. You've got manage. You got a whole lot of stuff that you have to do to turn that into money. If you own the stock, you let other people do that work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have spoilage really of used cars. You have different issues. A rock could hit it, someone could break in. There's going to be newer, cheaper models like the Cybercab. So probably equity is the best way to play it.
Amy. Amy, welcome. You have to unmute yourself for us to hear you.
Hello, Yaman. I actually didn't join to speak, so I've been having problems with connection.
Okay, Luce.
So during the last call, when Elon was asked when the first FSD ride will be made, the first robotaxi ride will be made, Elon corrected, saying that the most meaningful thing is when the first autonomous drive on FSD will be made, which means, in my opinion, that he plans to solve FSD before robotaxi, and it's not a matter of when robotaxi will be able to be autonomous, but whenever FSD will be able to go autonomous, which means that basically, in my opinion, hardware 4 for sure they plan to make autonomous.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very technical topic, so I really want to just kind of focus on the people who have experience with the, professional experience in the topic. If you're going to make predictions, Lucia, do you have any machine learning, artificial intelligence type of experience?
No, Yaman, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Robert, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was paying attention to X and wasn't paying attention to the question.
Yeah, that's okay. So there's a lot of debate around hardware 3 cars. The question at the top is, do you believe that Tesla is obligated to make hardware 3 cars robotaxi capable or somehow make their owners whole? I'm also not as certain.
By the way, I was one of the ones when I bought my first car, I got 2.5 and I got it upgraded for free. So I know that they can upgrade systems, like Omar said. The other thing about reading the signs, my car drives across Silicon Valley just fine. It does, so there's no evidence that matters. Also, if you have a fleet of Teslas, let's say you had a hardware 4 car in front of me, and we're going down a road that's never been imaged before, that can read the sign. My car might not be able to, but the car in front of me can tell me, hey, there's a sign here, stop, right? We haven't even started really exploring how the fleet can work together to make problems better, right? So having a hardware 4 or hardware 5 car in your neighborhood is going to make your hardware 3 car better in the future.
Okay, Bradford.
Yeah, you talk about maybe an investment in XAI. Potentially these cars could be talking to each other like ants. Like the ant figures out the path to the food, and then like drops down the pheromones, and then the rest of the ants just like read the pheromones and figure out like how to get there. So I think that's a great point that you make, Robert. I need to hop. My battery's at 3%. I'm on vacation, but I enjoyed this discussion.
Okay.
And
Enjoy. Take care, Bradford. All right. Just for fun.
Yeah, this is a question for Omar. So Machine seems very confident that hardware 3 won't be able to get to robotaxi due to, well, at least the current hardware 3, excluding any like upgrades. But seems like due to parameter count and the need to get to, say, 10 to 20x better in terms of miles per intervention for robotaxi. But Omar, you seem confident that hardware 3 will be able to. And just wondering kind of the main reasons that you believe it will be able to get that 10 to 20x improvement. Is it like algorithms, parameters, training, something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is far more likely than people realize that hardware 3 is going to be greater than human safety. So what we're seeing today, the model that is running in every Tesla, whether it's a hardware 3 or a hardware 4 Tesla, is only trained on hardware 3 images. We're talking about the low resolution images. So, everything people say, oh, it needs a resolution. Even the hardware 4 cars are downsampling that image, right? So people often think you need super high resolution, but actually there's benefits to a lower resolution in machine learning. It speeds up processing, and it actually has sufficient detail to see everything that it needs to see. The hardware 4 cameras are obviously better. But, Machine was always saying, oh, hardware 3 is maxed out. It can't do anything. They're going to need to increase the parameter count, and hardware 3 won't be able to run it. Well, we had a big piece of news, which almost everybody is not smart enough to actually understand. And they interpreted the exact opposite way. Elon said, actually, hardware 3 is going to run the model with the 5 times larger parameter count. Like, wow, that is a bombshell. You're telling me that this new model that's 5 times bigger is actually going to be able to run on hardware 3? So hardware 3 is not only going to be able to run this model that's 5 times larger, but all the future updates? And when you look at machine learning, we're constantly figuring out new ways to make these smaller models perform better and better. They can even sort of learn from the bigger models, so to speak, and improve the performance on devices that have a more limited resource footprint. So we have not seen any use of the extra power of hardware 4 yet. Hardware 4 will be able to run an even bigger model than hardware 3, and we're going to see that hopefully come out before the end of the year, within the next 6 months. But today, everything we're seeing is all a hardware 3 model. And it's doing all my drives, hours of drives across Los Angeles without an intervention almost every time. Now you're telling me they can't get from 99% to 99.9999 whatever? I wouldn't be so sure. Look at what the thing is doing, right? Just look at what it's doing, especially in 9 days from now, when they get 12.5 out for hardware 3. Go sit in a hardware 3 car with 12.5.2 and tell me that you're certain it's never going to be a robotaxi. I think there's a really good chance it is. So, back to the question at the top, is Tesla obligated? They've fulfilled all their obligations. Everything they've described in the website and the product page, they've literally delivered every single one of those features for hardware 3. Even going back to 2016, they've delivered all those features. But the crazy thing is they're not stopping. Any other company would say, hey, this is our obligation. We've met it. That's it. But they're continuing to work on it. They do want to make it robotaxi capable. And that's what they're going to do as long as it's technically feasible. And if it's not technically feasible, they will help those customers out. I mean, they're offering things like FSD transfer, where you can transfer your FSD package you paid for on a hardware 3 car to a brand new car at no cost. And they're going to make upgrades available or do whatever to make those customers happy. They've done a very good job of supporting cars that are even 8 years old, and I expect them to continue to do that. It's going to be important running a fleet of millions of cars to be able to manage all kinds of different hardware versions out there and push updates out to all kinds of different hardware generations.
Just for fun.
Yeah, just sort of playing devil's advocate a bit. So based on the FSD beta tracker, seems like the miles per intervention may have had a big jump with 12.5, but before maybe didn't. And so it seems like that big jump, may have corresponded with that 5x increase in parameter count. And then based on Elon's comments, seems like we may be getting towards some limit there for hardware 3. So if you wanted to increase the parameter count another 5x, it's not clear that hardware 3 could do it. Like I think he said, hardware 4, could have another increase of 8x or something like that. So just wondering your thoughts in terms of that. Like if you need a 10x improvement in miles per intervention, it seems like the parameter count increase worked. Is hardware 3 potentially limited there and needs other improvements to get that 10x?
Well, yeah, the hardware 4 eventually run an even bigger model, but that doesn't mean that a model that fits within the resource power of hardware 3 can't continue to improve as well. So, there's drivers out there, some are better drivers than others, right? but I believe both will be able to get above human levels of safety. Of course, I can't say this with 100% certainty. Maybe it'll turn out to not be true. But I believe that both will be able to get over a human level of safety. Hardware 4 will be even better than hardware 3. But when you just look at what the model can do today, and you look at the fact that hardware 3 is going to be able to run the same model, and they're going to continue to iterate on this 5 times larger model, this isn't by far the best model of this size. It's the first model of this size. You look at all that, and it seems quite plausible that you could get to a greater than human level of safety within the profile of hardware 3. And let's not forget, we as a software industry, we're always discovering new things. We're finding ways to use our compute power more efficiently. And the performance per even the smaller models that you're seeing is improving dramatically, right? Like take a look at GPT-4o Mini, Phi, and all of these smaller models like Google Gemma, etc.
Thank you, Omar. That's really helpful. Omar, so we have a couple more hands, but I would want to kind of understand where everybody stands specifically on this question. Will hardware 3 be robotaxiable? So will the owners of hardware 3 cars able to add it to a robotaxi network in the future? What percent probability do you assign to that? Omar, let's start with you first.
100%.
Wow. Okay. So
100% provided upgrades can be made.
Okay. So I saw a thumbs down from Alexander and Luce, but let's go to Uzi first. Uzi and then Danny. What percent probability do you assign to hardware 3 cars being able to add it to a robotaxi network in the future? Uzi?
I'd say like 60, 70%.
Okay, so more likely. Okay, and you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to know in 2019, Elon said hardware 3 will be called FSD computer. And then the question I had, which I could save for later, was what does validation mean in terms of hardware 3 and hardware 4? Because that's what seems like it's the major prohibiting factor to rolling out hardware 3 as fast as possible.
Omar, do you want to answer that question real quick before we go to Danny?
So, yeah, I think what people really need to sort of wrap their head around is any car that can actuate the steering wheel and pedals mechanically will become self-driving. You look at what Comma's doing, for example, it's going to be trivial to retrofit even like a window-mounted camera that can look in 360 degrees and drive the car with computer vision. So that's really all that's required to make can look in 360 degrees and drive the car with computer vision. So that's really all that's required to make a car autonomous. The hardware 3 cars that are already wired up with computers and cameras and everything else are a step ahead of an average car. But even an ordinary car, an ordinary EV, with some minimal hardware additions.
Working for robotaxi on hardware 3 is 100%, but it will trail behind hardware 4 and hardware 5 by potentially years. And I think Tesla should definitely give the option for someone with hardware 3 to upgrade in the meantime. And if Tesla cannot, within say 5 years, have robotaxi working on hardware 3, after they have it working on 4 or 5, they should maybe upgrade for free at that point, because I think a lot of people bought Tesla with FSD back then because they said it would happen. But I think it should be, people should be able to upgrade for money. And yeah, I think it will just trail behind by a few years.
Let's see. Luce, thank you, Danny. Luce?
So I think the chances of hardware 3 being autonomous is 20%, because if it happens after hardware 4 and hardware 5. And I think there will be less incentive to make it autonomous after a few years. Also, I had my hand raised up. Can I also add something else?
Yes.
I wanted to say that even if the prices of hardware 3 cars right now are very good, like 25,000, let's say that hardware 3 becomes autonomous and you can resell this car for 50, 60,000. I think robotaxi will be like will cost the same. So it's in my opinion there is really no necessity for hardware 3 car, like to buy hardware 3 car right now. It's not very important in my opinion. Sure.
Okay, John Lee.
Yeah, I think the question of whether the hardware 3 is capable is kind of not the right question, because it's are there, in order to optimize to make hardware 3 work, is the are the programmers use of time better to do that or do something on hardware 4 and hardware 5? The cost to upgrade the computers is really not all that great to Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, I really think about the way I ask these questions. The way I word them is based on conversations with thousands of investors. It's not that helpful when somebody changes the question, answers the question they want to answer, rather than answer the question I ask. Michael?
Yeah, I just wanted to react to someone earlier who said that Tesla should offer a way to upgrade from hardware 3 to hardware 4, and Tesla does. They're actually offering it this quarter. It's the FSD transfer. If you have a hardware 3 car and you want to upgrade to hardware 4, you just trade in your hardware 3 car and do the FSD transfer to a hardware 4 car. And I'm actually might be doing that this quarter.
Hey, Michael, do you have a half hour?
Yes.
Okay, I want to get back to you later for deliveries or Q3 delivery, production deliveries estimates. All right, let's go to Dallas and then Larry.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question directly, are they obligated? In my opinion, no. Unless there was specific verbiage mentioned early on, like Omar said earlier, on, stuff that they could take into court. I don't see that as a possibility. I do also side with Omar saying that I do think they're going to do an upgrade down the road. We've seen it done before, but I don't think that's out of the question at all. And to the people who are freaking out on Twitter saying, "Oh my gosh, my hardware 3 car is not going to make it. I need to go upgrade to a hardware 4 car right away." Okay, my route there would just be enjoy your car for 2 more years until AI 5 is released, because the chances of it not getting down the road 2 years is almost zero in my book. Enjoy your car, drive your car, watch the updates come out. And if you see somewhere in the near future of 2 years where your car stops receiving updates, there's a highly likely probability that they're going to offer an upgrade route or a retrofit. And if they don't, then go to AI 5. That gets you to AI 5.
Okay.
So that's where
Thank you. Omar, that machine.
Yeah. I don't think people have realized that hardware 4 doesn't actually do anything right now. It takes the images, it downsamples them, and it runs the hardware 3 model. So people are literally talking about, oh my God, hardware 4, hardware 3. They're not realizing hardware 4 isn't actually doing anything. It's pretending to be hardware 3. So why would you spend money to upgrade everyone to hardware 4 when it doesn't even do anything? If that hardware is already in your car out of the factory, sure. But going and clogging up the service centers and upgrade everyone so that what? So that they can be running the same model in emulation mode? I don't think people are really where we are, where, oh, hardware 3 is at capacity. They haven't even started using hardware 4, right? So the person who said, well, is it wasting the developer's time? It's not wasting their time. They haven't even started training a hardware 4 model yet at all, right? There's no world where you don't deal with backwards compatibility. There's no world in software where everybody's running the latest chip, right? When you release a version of Windows, you need to look back at several generations of processors. When Apple releases a new version of iOS, they don't release it just for the iPhone 15. Well, some features may only be for the iPhone 15, but they released the OS for iPhone 15 and 14 and 13 and 12, going back many years. So backwards compatibility is a headache, yes, but it's a headache that we all have to deal with in the software industry because we don't live in a perfect world where everyone's running the latest hardware. So it's just something you kind of have to do. When you're doing a cost benefit analysis, Tesla could, of course, upgrade everyone's computers. If they realize that the development cost of supporting Hardware 3 was too high, then they could say, okay, let's just go upgrade everyone's computers for free, or even offer a paid upgrade. But do the math. 1 million Hardware 3 cars times, let's say, $1,000 or $2,000 upgrade cost, that's billions of dollars. So what's more expensive? $1 billion of upgrades or hiring a couple extra guys to, work on some performance improvements? It's
Okay.
not even close.
Yeah. All right. I want to acknowledge Machine was ahead of the curve with these concerns. Almost about a year, 2 years ago, he was talking in this space and on his Twitter about Hardware 3's capabilities. Now, he's not yet 100% proven correct on this. Obviously, as Omar mentioned, it is still possible that Tesla will continue to improve Hardware 3, FSD on Hardware 3 for some time to come. But it is looking, let's say, at least we can say more people are starting to agree with Machine on this. But let me just give a word to Omar, then Machine, then Larry.
I mean, my read on the situation is that the exact opposite of what Machine has predicted has happened. He didn't think that Hardware 3 would be able to run a 5 times larger model. Just a few weeks ago, he was coming in here saying that this is a sign that Hardware 3 is maxed out, that it can't run the 5 times larger model. Is he going to come in here and say, "Oh, I was wrong. It actually can run it"?
Machine?
No.
The protests and lies going around against me will not stand. I never said that it would not handle this 5X model. My tweet literally.
This space is recorded, right?
My tweet literally was in response to the fact that Elon was saying they're working really hard to get it to work on Hardware 3, meant to me that after they get it to work, that they've reached the limit. Not that they weren't going to. It doesn't make any sense. He's literally saying they're trying to make it to work. Why would I say, no, it's not going to work? My point was, if this is now the limit, what we've been asking for years, where exactly is Hardware 3 in terms of its limits relative to FSD? We didn't know. Musk's tweets were the first indication of exactly where we operate. And my point was, after that, after we get this upgrade, 12.5, what is its disengagement rate? And then what is the disengagement rate we need to get to for robotaxis? And how much increase in, you could argue, model size versus training time versus data do we need to increase to get from point A to point B? And that's a matter of deeper conversation. But my point is simply, we know for Hardware 3 after 12.5, we're at the limit for model size. So you can only increase the other two variables and will you hope to get to point B? And I think that distance is just simply too far. Okay. And you have other people like Meta and James Dalma who are like, point A, point B, yada, 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 optimization, you get there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, Machine, how does it feel to be the person who is one of the most loved and also most hated person in one body?
I think most people here can agree it's probably most hated. It feels okay. I feel okay when people make irrational arguments. I don't. Then it's hard to really trust their attacks on me. It's people who make rational arguments that I really value. So it's okay.
Okay, good. I am here to protect you against all of your haters. Don't worry, you are well protected. Larry.
Yeah, so there's no evidence at all that we've reached the limit of hardware 3. There's evidence that they're now compiling for, or they're running the model on for hardware 4, and then they're having to optimize to hardware 3. There's absolutely no evidence that we've reached the limit of that optimization, despite what machine says. All we know is that there's a lot of work to be done, and whether that's a one-time job or whether it has to happen each time, we don't know, because we don't know what the distillation process is. We don't know what the we have no clue at all. And so upon this very, minimal amount of evidence, we're building this entire debate where no side in the debate has any clue about the reality.
Yeah. Well, that is machine's expertise to dramatize any sort of evidence that we have. And there's a question for machine in YouTube live chat. And the question is, what does your mom think?
My mom would trust whatever her son said, and that's what you all should do. In response to Larry, I don't think we disagree, and this is a communication gap. Everyone keeps saying, hardware 3 is not at its limit. In terms of an overall product, it's not at its limit. I agree with you. They're going to keep improving it. The software on hardware 3 will keep improving. We all agree on that. What I'm saying is the literal size of the model that you can fit on hardware 3, for the most part, is near its limit. You could argue, we can do some more optimization. I agree, we can drop the frame rate. There are things we can do to eke out more performance. But these things are breadcrumbs. And so it's going to make hardware 3 better. And even just training 12.5 with more data for longer is going to make it better. So we all agree on that. The question is about robotaxis. The question is about what software, model size, accuracy, we're trying to predict what is it going to take, and will that fit on hardware 3? And I just look at the literature and apply some common sense and say, I think not. Now, I'm not 100% sure. If we have significant evolution in model learning, if someone came up with transformers in 2017, if someone comes up with a new architecture that can get you the same performance with 100x less parameters, even in some other space, and Tesla applies that to FSD, absolutely, then it could work on hardware 3, right? But that's the sort of change we need. And the question, the whole reason I ever come up with hardware 3 and make this point wasn't about, in theory, in 10 years from now, will it work? Is that all these people are pining for robotaxis on their cars that they own today with hardware 3. And I'm saying, I don't know if it's going to happen in the next few years. So
Yeah, I think you made your point clear. And, I see a proliferation of hate messages for you on YouTube Live. So I want to protect you, like I said, by cutting you off. Like, for example, Vincent says, is Machine an only child? If so, his mom is really smart. Omar.
Yeah, so I think you've been hearing this sort of argument for a long time. Hardware 3 is at its limits. Hardware 3 is at its limits. Now they're coming out and saying, hey, we can actually run a model that's 5 times larger on hardware 3. And the people who said it's at its limits are saying, oh, see, it's at its limit. Well, you were saying it was at its limits before, and now it's running a 5 times larger model. It may be able to run a larger model still. And one of the things I think Machine was actually right about was the larger model performs way better than the smaller model in very subtle ways. So there clearly are benefits to continuing to scale up the model size. But overall, this question is so overly focused compared to how much it matters. Today, the hardware's running exactly the same on everything, right? The hardware 3 customers are whole. They're going to get to run the same update as everyone else. It's going to run just as well on hardware 3. Going into the future, if we need to scale up beyond the capabilities of hardware 3 to solve self-driving faster, then absolutely we should do that if we need to. That hasn't even happened yet, but I don't think it's off the table at all, right? If we say, okay, we can actually make this work at above human safety, all we need to do is, let's say, scale up the model 10 times larger than it is today, then that's fine. Give the hardware 3 guys a coupon, give them a free FSD transfer. It doesn't really matter. We'll make them happy. If we actually solve autonomy, that is all that matters. And the older cars are going to continue to get better as well. So, can they do it? Can they not do it? To be honest, I don't really care. I just care if they can do it on any hardware version, and then they'll be very successful, regardless of what the older cars can do.
Thank you. Alexander.
Yeah, machine, don't you understand the larger model? They can just take it and run it through WinZip and it will fit on hardware 3. Everything will work out fine.
Machine.
I mean, this is basically the argument that James Dalma and Meta are making, which is basically, well, if you look at these studies, that if you just increase the training time and data, they can reduce the model size by 10x. The problem is that number one, they haven't. This isn't a general application in theory. It's some studies in certain models, in certain domains, in certain levels of accuracy that we don't know necessarily tend out for FSD type models. And number two, even in those arguments, I feel like Meta would say, well, you can, if you want to just increase the model performance by 10x, you just increase the amount of data by 100x. Oh, is that it? Just increase the amount of data coming in by 100x? So if we want to get a 100x improvement, which we need, we're going to increase the data by 10,000x? Oh, that seems simple. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen in the next year.
Danny, then Omar.
There's more than breadcrumbs to gain. Just a few days ago, Llama 3.1 8B outperforms Llama 3 8B from months ago by a lot. ChatGPT is thousands times cheaper than just 1 year ago. As long as these keep happening, hardware 3 is not going anywhere. But I think
Machine,
Tesla will be overkill.
Danny, that's a good point. Thank you. Machine, do you agree with that point?
Well, I mean, I agree. We're getting massive progress in the ability to distill these models lower.
Do you think that is applicable to FSD?
I think the concept is applicable. And who's to say they're not already doing it? Who's to say that's not what they've done already to get it to work on hardware 3? You're acting like they haven't applied these techniques yet. Like they already are. So the question is, will Llama 4 be another 10x smaller than Llama 3? Will Llama 5 be another 10x smaller than Llama 3? That's the thing you need to think about for FSD. FSD is already applying these techniques. Is it going to keep happening?
Omar.
Yeah, I would ask Machine, whether Llama 3 7 billion parameter version, for example, performs better than Llama 2 7 billion parameters. Of course it does. Phi, Gemma, all these smaller models, we're not just seeing in LLMs, for example, to use a commonly discussed example, improvement in the frontier in the larger models. We're also seeing the smaller models improve as well. And I would listen to Andre Karpathy and many others who talk about why this is happening, why the smaller models are improving. And of course, you have, just basic quantization, but also what they found is the larger models are able to generate high quality labeled data for the smaller models and help the models improve. So I think just saying, okay, the model can't get bigger doesn't necessarily mean that the model performance can't continue to improve.
Thank you. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Okay, we have amazing speakers, and I'm going to delve into these topics in the future as a group in this space and on YouTube live streams, but also one-on-one in interviews on YouTube. I need to build that channel for this space to be financially sustainable. And I'm going to extend an invitation to every person on the speaker board today to do more focused one-on-one interviews, coffee bet reviews, more coffee bets, maybe 5-10 minutes on personal as well, to get to know each one of you at a deeper level and focus on these things without getting distracted by all the moderation work and everything. So I'm looking forward to that with each one of you. All right, so for the last few minutes, let's go to Michael. I want to understand his expectations for Q3 production and deliveries. There's a lot of wide range of expectations for Q3 results, and Michael has been extremely good with predicting these things, as much, if not even better in some cases, than Troy. And we're lucky to have Michael in this space. Michael, what do you expect for Q3?
Yeah, thanks, Yaman. So for Q3, I'm currently expecting around 445,000 produced and delivered. I do not have yet enough data to kind of figure out whether they'll draw down inventory or increase inventory. So my delivery estimate is the same as my production estimate. I estimate that they've produced so far 135,000 cars in the first 4 weeks. And part of that is an uptick in China. So there have been some reported rumors that China is returning to full capacity. I don't think they returned to full capacity, but there was an uptick, it seems, in the first 4 weeks of production. I expect them to end up for the quarter around 445,000, but I have a wide kind of range because it's the beginning of the quarter. They might increase production, they might decrease production. That was something I didn't kind of account for last quarter, was that they ended up cutting production as the quarter went on repeatedly. So in order to manage inventory.
Okay, thank you. And the questions at the top of our screens: how many deliveries in Q3 2024? Closest, this is a contest. Closest guess without going over wins. So this is Price is Right rules. Machine, do you have an expectation for this quarter?
Nope.
Okay. So right now, everybody's banking on Michael being right. Michael?
Yeah, so I think there will be some increase, but also it's better, a little bit better seasonally. But also they've started offering the incentives earlier in the quarter, the financing incentives, and for longer. And also in Europe, they're probably going to struggle this quarter because of the new tariffs. So there's like positives and negatives, and overall, it will probably be slightly up quarter over quarter, is my opinion. I think they're going to continue to kind of struggle to really get good growth until they refresh the Model Y. I think that's a big drag because Model Y is kind of getting older.
Okay, thank you, Michael. All right, we have 5 minutes left. Thank you very much for all the great speakers. This has been a great space. If you've just joined or recently joined, I recommend going back and listening from the beginning. We started out with macro. We talked about Robin Denholm's insider sales. We talked about FSD and other topics as well. So I highly recommend listening to this. And Omar, we have a comment for you in the replies that says, I love Omar, and I feel like he's ready to snap that this is still being debated. Is that true?
I think
that sounds like a yes.
Yeah. TLDR, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think it's kind of crazy how sort of off base the discussion is from what's actually happening. You make a chart You chart out the miles per intervention. People go, oh my God, I had some intervention. I had to take over to prevent a crash. Yeah, of course you do. You know, it's a supervised system. That's like saying, Omar, this dog is really cute. You said this dog was cute, but then it shit on my rug. Yeah, that's what dogs do. You know, you kind of have to be careful. But you chart out the miles per intervention. Just make a simple chart and look at what direction it's going. It's going above human level. Virtually everybody agrees that this is happening. The only debate now is what are the labels on the x-axis? What is that date where it crosses over? But it's pretty much an inevitability at this point. And I don't think most people have really absorbed that.
All right. All right. Let's leave on that note. Oh, okay, Machine. Machine does not want to let us leave on a good note. Go ahead, Machine.
Someone should plot this supposed graph that Omar's envisioning with the FSD data, beta data, but make sure the scale is 100,000 miles on the top of the y-axis, just so you can go see where we're operating right now. And I'm not pessimistic. I'm trying to be realistic. The hardware 3 thing, I agree with Omar, is kind of a distraction from the overall progress. It's not indicative of the progress, right? It's just one part that's kind of amusing because so many people here, it's not just about investing, it's about their hopes and dreams of their vehicle, personal vehicle, being used by someone else to throw up in and take a dump inside. I don't know why people want this, but they really want it, and it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Okay. I really tried hard to leave on a good, positive note on a down day, but Machine just didn't want to. Didn't want to let us have that moment. You must be really fun at parties. And we have a comment on YouTube live chat that says, Omar needs another day at Disney. And on that note, thank you very much, everybody. And I will chat with you tomorrow. Take care.